You guys might have heard about George Orwell's amazing list. If you haven't, well, George Orwell, after World War II, submitted a list of left-wingers to the British imperial government. He handed them a list of people who he thought were bad. And it's a very worrying list, to say the least. It also hasn't been fully released. His family is actively suppressing its open dissemination because there were two lists. One of them had 35 to 39 names on it, depending on what source you look at. And that one is publicly available because it was the one that he actually ended up handing to the government. But he also made a wide list of 135 names, most of which are still hidden, haven't been released by his family. And I would assume that the reason why this list hasn't been released is because it makes him look even worse than the original list, than the actual finished list does. Let's just go over some of the people who are on that list and his justification for putting them there. So this is the list that he ended up submitting to British intelligence. A list of basically any left-winger who he didn't like. Any of them who are Jewish, he makes sure to tell you. Like this guy, I don't know who this is. I Ducha, sympathizer only. Is Polish Jew. Was Trotskyist and changed his views because of Jewish issue. Cedric Dover. Is Eurasian. Main emphasis, anti-white. Especially anti-USA. Writer, half-caste. My favorite type of socialism is the socialism where you submit lists of Jews and half-castes to the British Empire, and you explicitly write in your reasoning for submitting the list that they are Jewish or half-caste, as he described that fella. George Padmore, for member of the League Against Imperialism. Negro. First fucking thing that he says. Negro. Nicholas Moore, poet. And there are people who try to justify this, by the way, by saying that it's okay. These were all Stalinists. All of these people were involved with suppressing the Spanish Republicans in Spain or something, which didn't happen, for one. But for two, there are people on this list who had something to do with the Spanish Republican movement. They fought on its side, and he still put them on the list. This one here, Nicholas Moore, for example, poet. Anarchist leanings. Turns out that George Orwell wasn't just making a list of evil, bad, tanky Stalinists. Turns out he also had a problem with literally anyone who was against the British Empire. Anarchist leanings. Get on that list. Black? Get on that list. Hungarian? Oh, you bet you're on that list. Eurasian? Half-caste? Oh, you're on the list. Oh yeah, there was also, Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin is on the list. Charlie Chaplin, the tanky. And in his original list, which you can't see it here, Charlie Chaplin, Jewish? Jewish? Question mark? Jewish? Paul Robeson, for being black, noted very anti-white. And this article notes that Orwell was literally like a fucking McCarthyist before McCarthy, and it is really true. It is. He was submitting names of random leftists, including anarchists, not just tanky Stalinists, to British intelligence, fucking knocking on them. Let's look at other people from this list. Peter O'Donnell, Irish socialist. Irish Republican. George Orwell submitting names of Irish Republicans to the British Empire to be surveilled. You want to know the twist about this one? There's a twist. Peter O'Donnell on Orwell's list for being an Irish socialist. In 1936, O'Donnell was in Barcelona during the outbreak of the Spanish Civil War. He joined the Spanish Republican militia that supported the Popular Front government against Franco. He then returned to Ireland and recruited other Republicans to fight for the Spanish Republic. They joined the International Brigades, where they were known as the Connolly Column. So this is a guy who quite literally, not just fought on the Republican side during the Spanish Civil War, but went home and recruited more Irish socialists to go and fight on the Republican side during the Spanish Civil War. Orwell put him on his list for the British Empire of people who needed to be surveilled and watched by the state. This is not a socialist. This is not a leftist of any stripe. The guy even wrote articles justifying monarchy. George Orwell explains why left-wingers should actually be grateful for the monarchy. A socialist is not someone who, in their words and actions, clearly does pretty much everything possible to advance the cause of Western capitalism. He was a lifelong government employee, and near the end of his life and during the war was straight up an employee of the fucking British intelligence services, giving them lists, as much of a Fed as you can be without being American. Lists that his sympathizers try to justify with. It's okay to give lists of Stalinists. Stalinists are bad, which is fucking insane anyway. He didn't give that list because he thought they were Stalinists, for one. Clearly, it's because some of them were black, some of them were Jewish, Polish, some of them were Hungarian, some of them were half-caste, Eurasians as he called them. Well, it's okay because they were Stalinists. It's okay to report people to the literal fucking British Empire as long as you can rationalize that somehow with them being like the incorrect left tendency. And it's also just not true because there are anarchists on that list. And they justify it with Stalinists who betrayed the revolution in Catalonia. Not one single person on that list had anything to do with the revolution in Catalonia. And when they did, they literally fought on the Republican side. They were fucking on his side during the revolution in Catalonia. And he still put their name on a list and gave it to the British government. There's no excuse. George Orwell was literally just like the most generic status quo capitalist liberal in the world. When you add up the full extent of his actions and words, that is just blatantly obvious. He was straight up like a government man for the British Empire his entire life. You can't say otherwise. Give me a break. Everything that he did served Western imperialism and specifically British imperialism perfectly. Not once did he ever do anything that meaningfully opposed it. So give us a fucking break. The guy was a piece of shit, and anyone who upholds him while trying to be nominally on the left is clearly just a liberal pretending to be a leftist. It's really that simple. Inexcusable. I can't imagine them making excuses for anyone else, literally giving a list of like people to surveil to British intelligence, especially a list that has the names of like fucking anarchists on it too. Unbelievable. So yeah, fuck George Orwell. His life was dedicated entirely to furthering the interests of the British Empire and the Western imperialist status quo under a thin veil of being anti-Soviet. It really is that simple. And that is precisely why he's so loved by the right wing, by the liberals, by centrists, and by pretend leftist liberals as well, because he is completely compatible with the imperialism that they support. It's that simple.